Have you ever been so angry that Goosefraba doesn't make you feel better? I get angry like that all the time, but I found a trick: smashing stuff with a hammer. It's simple, but very effective. Now, in real life, I can't smash things with hammers very often, but in Destiny, I can do it all the time. The Code of the Devastator has been one of my favorite Titan subclass branches since it was released, but I must acknowledge the fact that it's a bit gimmicky. With that said, its gimmick is strong if you can leverage it, and today we're going to go over a build that does that. Your passive ability, Roaring Flames, increases the damage of solar abilities when you get solar ability kills, and this buff can stack up to 3 times. The Throwing Hammer melee ability allows you to stack that buff consistently. It's a simple ranged melee attack, but after it's thrown, it becomes an interactable object that can be retrieved. The Throwing Hammer will remain interactable for 10 seconds, at which time it will explode. The Tireless Warrior ability triggers health regeneration when you pick up your Throwing Hammer, making it a bit less risky to charge into a pack of enemies to pick up your little friend. The gameplay loop for this subclass is relatively simple. Build up your stacks of Roaring Flames to 3, then chuck a grenade at the biggest bad guy in the room for massive damage. If a grenade isn't enough, build up your stacks to 3, then pop your Burning Maul super. A fully buffed Burning Maul will deal absurd damage to single targets with a combination of light and heavy attacks, while spamming the heavy attack will completely obliterate large clumps of enemies. It's fantastic, but we can make it even better with a loadout curated around that. When you make a build, your goal should be to create a system of abilities, mods, and weapons that work together. The Code of the Devastator has its own system, but there are ways to empower it even farther. The Heart of Inmost Light is a fantastic exotic, not simply because it provides strong effects, but it creates a unique gameplay loop that, when mastered and combined with the Code of the Devastator, feels like nothing else in the game. This exotic armor piece and its perk Overflowing Light is surprisingly complicated, and its description doesn't fill you in on all the nuance of the item. Using an ability, your grenade, melee, or barricade empowers the other two. The empower effect speeds up the cooldown and increases the damage of the other two abilities. In the case of your barricade, it increases its hit points. You can have 2 empower buffs active at a time, but only some combinations of empower can be active together. You can activate your barricade to empower your melee and grenade, and follow up with a melee to further empower your grenade and barricade. You can also throw a grenade to empower your melee and barricade, then use a melee to empower your barricade and grenade further. That gives you a lot to think about in combat, but the results speak for themselves. Each offensive ability you send out is like a tactical nuke, and your barricade is more sturdy than usual. You'll also get to use your barricade more often, so armor mods on your class item like Bomber and Outreach will speed up your cooldowns. Now, since we've got the damage boost from Roaring Flames and the empower effect from the Heart of Inmost Light, I want a way to focus that damage, so I'm going to use the Fusion Grenade. With the Fastball mod on my gloves, the grenade throw is quick and it's very easy to stick targets even at longer distances. Now we need some weapons to round out the build. Even with the Heart of Inmost Light speeding up my ability cooldowns, they don't always feel fast enough, so I'm going to dial things up to 11 with the Perfect Paradox Shotgun with the Demolitionist trait. Demolitionist reduces the cooldown of my grenade when I kill an enemy. The final bit of icing on the cake is the Charged with Light mod, Protective Light. If my health goes critical while I'm charged, all of my stacks will be consumed, and I'll gain damage resistance for a duration based on how many stacks were consumed. Now there's a lot of moving pieces going on with this setup, so we're going to head out into the field and talk more about everything. But before we do that, we're going to take a closer look at my armor, my mods, and weapons. The first thing noteworthy on my class item, I have Enhanced Bomber and Recuperation. Enhanced Bomber is going to reduce the cooldown of my grenade whenever I use my class ability, and I'm going to be using my class ability a lot. So this is going to give me a tremendous amount of value. It's going to increase the uptime on my fusion grenade, which is great because my fusion grenades do ridiculous amounts of damage because of Roaring Flames ×3. Recuperation replenishes health each time you pick up an Orb of Light. This is going to work really well with the Masterwork Perfect Paradox that I have. So when I do fight in close quarters and potentially bite off more than I can chew, if I secure a double kill, an orb is going to pop out of the enemy, and it's going to give me a pretty sizable chunk of health back. I already mentioned that I have the Protective Light mod on to make me a bit more durable, but what I didn't mention are the utility-focused charged with light mods that I have on. I have charged up on my boots, which is going to increase my maximum stacks from 2 to 3. And on my helmet, I have stacks on stacks. Every time I become charged with light, I gain an additional stack. And I'm using the taking charge mod to gain my stacks. Whenever I pick up an orb, I become charged. That's going to give me 2 stacks immediately. It's going to speed things up a little bit. Ultimately, I don't think you need stacks on stacks with protective light, but I think it's nice, and I'm not going to put anything else there, so it is what it is. For my Perfect Paradox shotgun, I mentioned that I have Demolitionist on it, but I am also using Swashbuckler. This weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with the weapon. Killing something with the throwing hammer counts as a melee kill, and that will give me 5 stacks of Swashbuckler immediately, which is the maximum potential stacks that you can gain. So there's some nice synergy going on there. I'm not going to take advantage of it too much, or at least I'm not going to do it consciously, but it is a nice effect that goes along with the Code of the Devastator and this trait. Finally, my bow is the Arsenic Bite 4B. This is the lightweight bow. I don't typically use these. I don't like them as much as the precision bows, but it's kind of cool, and it has the element type that I need for the Nightfall that we're going to do today, the Scarlet Keep. And for my traits, I have Archer's Tempo and Rampage. Now, without further ado, let's get into the testing. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on with this setup. This is one of the more complicated builds that I like to play, but it's very rewarding if I can do things correctly. And it's also very ammo efficient because I'm going to use my abilities so often. This throwing hammer can basically serve as my primary weapon a lot of the times. If I position myself correctly, I can use it pretty consistently to deal with most of the enemies that I come into contact with. Now, I am taking a bit too much damage here, but Sheltered by the Void, the protective light buff, is going to activate and help me survive that sticky situation. Now, Roaring Flames is about to wear off, so I want to get that big damage grenade on that enemy before it does. Because as you saw, that was a huge chunk of damage that we got there. So getting that out before the buff faded was very, very critical. But the main thing that we're trying to do here is make sure that we keep our Roaring Flames buff active consistently, but I also want to make sure that I am keeping my charges of light active so that if I do go critical, which is going to happen, I'm going to have that little bit of an extra buffer that will help me get to safety. Now, this guy's popping up here with an arc shield. I'm going to hit him with a grenade. Then I've got to back up a little bit and make sure to control the spacing. Because one of the downsides to the throwing hammer is that you can't use it at point blank range. You need a little bit of space in order to get that thing out. So when you are getting pushed by Thrall, you're going to want to take advantage of your barricade or any enemy that's coming into melee range. You can use your barricade to slow them down. And then from there you can just either throw a grenade at them or throw your hammer to build up your stacks again. And they've got another wizard. Gonna hit him with the hammer to break the shield and then follow up immediately with a grenade. So far so good, nice and smooth. Got another arc shield off in the distance. Let's slide over that hammer for just a tiny bit of extra health. Then we'll throw out the sticky. Now let's go get back our objective. The cool thing about the throwing hammer and the Tireless Warrior passive ability that you have is it gives you a very, very small burst of health and it triggers health regen. So if you do pick it up while you're getting shot, you will see immediate returns, and with the Sheltered by the Void from Protective Light, it will probably be enough to kind of keep you alive and get you out of harm's way. Uh-oh. Let's break that shield. Oh! And then do that. Now, it is a bit unfortunate that my throwing hammer went over the side, but it's not going to take me very long to get it back because of the Empower effect. While that's ticking in the background, while I'm grabbing this objective, you see my cooldown is speeding up. One Empower isn't enough to bring back my full cooldown, but I can just call out my barricade to get it back again. And by the time I'm going to need to throw my hammer, it is going to be ready for me. So far, so good, though. This subclass is a lot of fun, and the Heart of Inmost Light has always been my favorite exotic to use with it because it allows you to lose your abilities like your throwing hammer and not feel horrible about it. Because without the ability to speed things up, the throwing hammer winds up feeling a bit more precious than I think it should be. It feels like something that I absolutely have to always land my throws perfectly. And sometimes I just want to throw this thing and hope for the best. And the Heart of Inmost Light allows me to do that. Also, a fun interaction that enemies will have with the throwing hammer is they will hide from it because it explodes, so it responds similar to a grenade. But that's something that you can take advantage of. If you throw the hammer into certain crowds of enemies, then they will cower in fear of it. And we've got a big ogre pushing me. Unfortunately, my fusion grenade didn't stick it, so I'm going to have to use my heavy a little bit to finish him off. And that's okay. We've got Sheltered by the Void. I'm going to try and get a double kill with my shotgun for that orb, and Recuperation is going to top me off the rest of the way. Recuperation with a Masterwork shotgun is a very, very fun way to play. It makes a super aggressive weapon a little bit more manageable. It's very difficult to play a close range play style in Destiny 2 in higher difficulty content because enemies just do a lot of damage. But when you have the ability to restore some of your HP by getting a double kill and collecting an orb, that makes things a little bit safer. It's not a foolproof strategy. It's still something you have to... You can't just... You don't turn into Rambo instantly just because you have Recuperation on your class item, but it certainly helps you be a bit more aggressive about how you place yourself and how you position yourself around the battlefield. This next bit of the Nightfall is my favorite part of the Nightfall because there are a bunch of mini-bosses for me to deal with, and the Roaring Flames ×3 and the Empower effect are going to make them very easy to deal with. Now, before I get over there, I want to make sure I have my charges of light ready for me because things might get hectic. So there are 3 wizards that we have to contend with, one in the middle, one to the left, and one to the right. And unfortunately, I think my Roaring Flame is going to wear off before I get to deal with this first wizard. But I can still use an Empower ×2 grenade, and that's still going to be massive damage. So moving towards the next wizard, I want to try and get that Roaring Flame stacked up a little bit higher. And there we go, we've got max stacks. Now we've just got to break the wizard's shield, throw a grenade, and then he's taken out. I'm just going to deal with the third and final wizard, making sure my stacks are ready. The grenade is now empowered as well. And there we go. Okay, that bit got a little bit intense, but I want to narrate over what I just did there. There are going to be instances where you miss your hammer throw, and your initial thought is, oh my god, I have to go pick it up. But something very, very, very critical to your success with the Code of the Devastator is that you do not want to race into a crowd of enemies to pick up your hammer if that hammer has not hit anything. Because picking up a throwing hammer that has not hit an enemy will not give you any healing. And that healing that you get from picking up the hammer is what allows you to play a little bit more reckless and be in the thick of the action. So you're going to have to consciously tell yourself, okay, that hammer didn't hit anything. I'm letting it go until I clear out all the enemies that are around it, and then I'll push forward. Because you're gonna, in trying to go to get the hammer that hasn't hit anything, you're putting yourself in way unnecessary danger. And there we go. That's going to do it for the build for today. This is a lot of fun to engage with, and it even has value in the higher difficulty content, the 950 and 980 Nightfalls, nightmare hunts, etc. It works wonders in those environments. The obvious question you're going to ask yourself is, why would I run this over a bubble, or why would I use a shotgun instead of Izanagi's Burden? And I'm not going to answer that question for you, because that's for you to decide. I enjoy using shotguns sometimes. They can be an exciting weapon to use, and they are workable when you have the class item mods like recuperation and other abilities that help you stay alive in close quarters combat. It's a lot of fun. Shotguns could use a little bit of a damage buff. I wouldn't complain if they got one, but they probably won't. But it is what it is. In any case, we are going to wrap things up here, but don't worry, there's plenty more coming in the future, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.